Welcome to the Money Tree Real Estate Investor Podcast, where we learn from real estate professionals across the industry. They will share about how they got into real estate, the big wins they have celebrated, the mistakes they have made along the way, and the advice they have for anyone following in their footsteps. Money really does grow on trees. Hey everybody, it's William Hollins here for another episode of the Money Tree Real Estate Investor Podcast. I've got a special guest here today, Don Spafford. He's in real estate. He's got a lot of good stuff going on, and I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself.
All right, thank you, William. Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here for sure, and to share, I guess, what I'm doing and my journey with you and your listeners. Like I said, something I'm doing something that's a bit more unique than what most people are probably used to hearing or talking about. So I'm happy to get into that with you. For me, brief intro, I guess. So I currently live in Idaho Falls, Idaho. So that's eastern Idaho, kind of opposite sides of Boise. We're about an hour and a half away from Yellowstone Park. I grew up most of my life, though, around Omaha, Nebraska. And we moved to Idaho in about 2015 to help care for my mother was our main reason for moving here. I've always had an interest pretty much my entire life, I guess, as far as money and finance. I've always, even as a little kid, earning some money, doing whatever, I save it more than spend it. And I got my first job at 14 and, was able to save money and use that to buy my first vehicle. And I always had an interest in investing ever since I was like 14 years old. I remember looking at the newspapers back then to look at the stock prices, changes and things, and kind of following that a bit as much as I could. I always had plans at some point I wanted to invest in, didn't quite at that point, didn't think I had really enough to do it. Before we're talking about, E-Trade and those things that are all online. Now you can invest with, $1, but back then you'd have, considerable amount to really start. So I just always had the picture of one made doing that. And that was actually later on my career path I chose was to study finance and investing and, investment science, portfolio management. So I got my degree in how to analyze and invest in stocks and had planned to make a career of that, to be a wealth advisor. But lo and behold, by the time I graduated, I took a long time to do it, going part-time because I was also raising a family at the same time. By the time I finished all that, it was 2008. And so, by then, many of these companies I was planning to go work for were now going out of business and laying people off. So I was like, well, that's not in my, not my sight right now. So I took some time to I guess, readjust. And, from all the jobs I saw at the time, anyway, everything looked more around accounting is what was still available. So I was like, well, maybe I should go back and get an accounting degree and, get a CPA instead. That's still pretty stable. And so I did that. I went and got the degree, started studying for the CPA, but I realized I just didn't feel like I had the time to really dedicate to do it, to really be able to pass it and all that. And so I was not willing to sacrifice my family to do that. So I decided just to put that on hold and just, let things play out. I just be happy I had the job I had and, at least had some job security and whatnot. So I just kind of followed that path for a while, just to, trusting that, God would guide me to where I need to go and do whatever. And so it was a few years later, maybe about 2010, 11 or so, when my wife, wanted to start working. She'd always been a stay-at-home mom, and by this point, our youngest kids had started school. Whatever reason, we came up with the idea to get into real estate as a realtor. To give her that flexibility to be available when the kids are sick or during the summer, to not have them go to daycare and all that. So if we looked into it, she liked the idea of talking to people and helping people. So that's kind of what got our foot in the door in real estate was through her. She got her license around 2010, 11, about the same time actually our fourth child was born. So she started off, carrying our baby around everywhere, but her first clients were investors, and so that kind of really what got me really thinking more about investing in real estate. During that 2008 crash, I of course paid attention and noticed all the prices coming down on real estate, but I knew absolutely nothing about real estate or how to invest in them or manage them, anything. I guess even looking back, I think I laugh now because at the time, I saw these amazing opportunities, but I was like, I didn't even cross my mind about renting them. I was like, okay, I could buy a property and hold on to it for a few years and wait for it to recover and resell it. But I was like, well, how am I going to afford it in the meantime? I didn't even think about, you can rent it, have the tenants pay. But so anyway, I didn't get involved in that until later on. So by the time we moved to Idaho, actually is when we actually finally got started. We bought our first property in 2017. was a four-plex, and then it took about a year and a half later before we got another one. Or actually, bought two more a year and a half later as a package deal in Arkansas. And then from there, I think it just kind of started snowballing, I guess, in a way that I got involved in some other commercial deals, a land flip deal, then a development project, and then got involved with a bigger development project. And then just ultimately, looking for something better out there, I ultimately landed with what I'm doing now with Happy Camper Capital, in which we purchase RV resorts and campgrounds. So that's kind of a very, very brief recap of maybe the last, I guess, would that be 15 years or so?
That was a quick, condensed version of 15 years. Thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
That's funny. I was just thinking, what you mentioned early on. So, I'm kind of nerdy about finance and stuff like that as well. And my mom in eighth grade, I think it was actually E-Trade, allowed you to have a fake account and have fake money
Yeah,
that you could buy actual stocks with, just to see performance and stuff like that. So I started doing that in eighth grade. How nerdy is that?
that's awesome. Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't have that option. I mean, I did. I guess probably before or after, I can't remember. So years ago, Investopedia, they used to have like a stock challenge, basically. So you could have these fake portfolios, we'll say, and then buy things and earn prizes and even win money at the end. So actually doing that challenge, I remember it was like probably 2006 or seven or so. Um, I won an iPod in that for like the
That's
highest
pretty
gain in
cool.
the highest gain in a single day. I was actually the leaderboard to win the whole thing. I was going to win, like $5,000 if I could have won
Yeah.
by the time this challenge ended. But literally with like in a week of that ending, my portfolio dropped. So I had a lot of Chinese stocks at the time, and China just dropped unfortunately right at that time. So I went from being the first place to like somewhere further down. So I didn't win it, which made me kind of upset. Of course, I was getting all
Yeah.
hyped up, like, yeah, I'm gonna win this thing. And then prove to my future employer that I can pick stocks good. But anyway, yeah, that fell through, unfortunately. But yeah, it was fun. We the Probably the first thing I did was back in high school. We had a kind of a similar type of challenge, but again, it was before really computer days, I guess. And so, or before internet, I should say, not before computers, before internet. So we did a similar type of challenge with other schools in the region, I guess. And but for me, unfortunately, we had to be put into groups. We couldn't do it individually. So my group did not agree with my choices. I wanted to put
They
it all
kind of
pretty much
brought you
into
down
one.
a little bit.
Yeah. I wanted to put it all into one stock. I was like, I'm the one that follows this stuff. I know what's going on. I wanted to put it all into Micron at the time. And they were like, no, we got to diversify. And I was like, this is a short-term time challenge, not a long-term thing where you diversify. We're trying to win. So I,
Mhm.
I, I lost on that vote, and we ended up not winning. And the winning team actually did have the majority of their stuff in Micron. So I'm like, see, we could have won. But yeah, I've always had a fascination for just how money works, I guess, and investing in the compounding factors and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm kind of a nerd too, I guess.
That's Hey, that's okay, man. Being a nerd pays off, I think.
That's right. I used to tell people, yeah, you call me a nerd. I don't care. Bill Gates was a nerd too, and look at him. It's like who's the ones that rule the world? Really, it's the nerds. So there you go.
Right. For sure, and I think before we kind of dive into real estate, a concept that you just mentioned is like, hey, when you were in high school, wanting to buy in on one stock, like Warren Buffett, he talks about all the time, like he does have, a few different stocks, but he doesn't diversify greatly. Like he focuses on a few things. He does all the research that he needs, and then he goes all in on those things, and we've seen
Right.
how he's performed over the long term. And I think
Yeah.
that advice, it goes for business, it goes for relationships, it goes for real estate as well. Like you can't do all asset classes, you can't do all markets. You pick a few, and there's winners and losers in all of them, but you pick a few and you go all in, and that's where the real long-term growth happens.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. So I just wanted to highlight a few things outside of real estate before we dive in. So I know you were an Eagle Scout. You were a Scout Master. So how long were you involved with the Boy Scouts?
Oh, um, well, a long time, I guess. So I was a Cub Scout first, and then got involved with Boy Scouts. Actually, had pretty much mostly, I'd say, earned my Eagle by the time I was 14, but I put off my Eagle project for several years because I started working. I mentioned before I started working at 14, so I kind
Right.
of put scouting on the back burner. It's like I wanted to work, you know.
You gotta pay the
So I
bills.
yeah, so I finally did get my Eagle just barely in time before I turned 18, and they did give me a hard time. I almost didn't even approve it because I put it off for so many years. Like, you could have earned this years ago. Why'd you wait? You know, like, well, you know, life. But I did earn it, luckily. Um, and then then I left for a couple of years to go serve a mission for our church, and came back, and a few years after that, I guess I got asked to be a scoutmaster for a young Hispanic troop in Omaha. Whose first family backgrounds are scouting was new to all of them. None of them had even concept of guess what scouting was. So it was definitely a lot of work involved, but I enjoyed that a lot. And then I was involved with that until we moved to Idaho, and then maybe a year or so later, I got called here to be a Weebles leader and then a Cub master, yeah, yeah, Cub master. I can't remember what it's called. So I was doing that for a few years as well. So I've actually been out of it now for probably 3 or so years, but it's always been definitely something that's was passionate for me. And even my dad was never a scout when he was young, but he got involved as an adult and was a scout leader and went to all the Philmont training stuff and all that. So he enjoyed it probably even more than I did. But just because he missed out on the be able to be involved with it as a youth. But so he was definitely a big inspiration for me to try to go to those things. And he always wanted to take me to the World Camporee things that I always did. We never went to them just because I was like, well, yeah, I don't think you spend the money on that to go. We don't need to go to Chile to go to a scouting event or something. But yeah, it was good to have that at least that support at home, and being inspired by him, and but above all, I just said being as the leader, I enjoyed it more as a leader, I think, than I did an actual scout. Just to have that aspect of in a way being like a mentor and helping to guide these youth and see things through a different light than maybe what they do at home or elsewhere.
Yeah, I love that so much, So I'm a believer in Jesus as well, and I just signed up for church to be able to help with the kids ministry, So I think it's so important. I seek mentors in all areas of life. I seek financial mentors, I seek real estate mentors, I seek counseling and relationship mentors, and it's so important to grow, by seeking mentorship, but it's also so important to give back to other people. So I love kids, and just really excited to be able to serve them.
Sure, yeah, that's great. Yeah, I know as right now, through everything I'm doing with real estate, I don't have time probably for it to be a full on involved, but I've definitely given some consideration possibly this next year to at least register to be a counselor for some badges about financing and investing, and have to check if you got anything new these days, maybe something real estate specifically, but
They
at least
should.
the finance one, and help give some guidance to say, but because there's more than just stocks out there to kind of give some insight and examples from my real life experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. So the last thing before we dive in, so I love travel. I've been to several countries. And I understand you mentioned you traveled to another country. So tell us where you've been, and I know that you speak Spanish as well. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm fluent in Spanish. In fact, I used to many years ago actually had a translation business that I operated for a bit.
Okay,
But
that's
yeah, so
awesome.
I lived in Argentina for 2 years, and obviously became fluent during that time. And my wife is from Paraguay, so we still speak Spanish at home. Our kids mostly speak Spanish. The two older ones speak it. The rest of them understand it. They really speak it as well. They're more English at home with them, but yeah, we maintain it. We went to church many years and spent for a Spanish group as well, and um, but yeah, so I lived in Argentina, and then my wife, we visit Paraguay as often as we can, not as often as we would like, but we were just there this last year. We pretty much spent the whole month of June in Paraguay. We had plans, of course, to go in 2020, and that got canceled and postponed. So this year was our chance to finally go. Um, so that's pretty much the main two places I'd say I visited and been to is Paraguay and Argentina. Of course, we've driven through or flown through other countries, layovers and things, but haven't really technically visited anywhere else just yet. We do have plans, I think, if not sooner, I think for my 50th birthday, which is, unfortunately not too far away, but
Okay.
we're planning to possibly take a trip to Egypt, because that's my dream place to visit is
Oh
Egypt, honestly, of
man.
all places in the world. I love the ancient Egyptian culture and all that. So I want to go see the pyramids and go through all that museum stuff. And yeah, that's my dream place where I want to go, more than say Hawaii or Paris and those other places people want to go.
Mhm.
I want to go to Egypt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's incredible. I'm in construction management, so to try to even fathom how those things were built is pretty incredible.
Passive investors in real estate are able to receive a check every month. Some people call that mailbox money. We say money really does grow on trees. Visit the website at biggerpictureholdings.com, where we have a ton of free resources to help you learn more about planting your very own money tree.
I guess we'll go ahead and kick it off into real estate now. So you are a co-owner of a property management company. You're also a blog writer, and you acquire properties. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about each one of those.
Okay, so the property management that came about just sort of, I guess, as a natural progression. As we first started investing in our local area, here in the Idaho Falls, Idaho area, uh, kind of, I guess, out of again, my wife working with many investors. She's had people that contacted her to sell some properties they own here, and kind of learning through them the experiences they had with their property management that they were using. We realized that at least that manager they were using was horrible. So I was like, if these other people are having these successful businesses and not doing a good job of it, I could probably do better than that. Because I was managing my own property and doing it fairly well, I thought. And then so kind of out of the blue one day we were visiting with a friend of ours that was being transferred from his job, but he didn't want to sell his house. He wanted to keep it. So I was like, hey, I can manage it for you. So that was kind of like the first one that opened the door. He's
Okay.
like, yeah, sure. And so I started managing that property for him, and then later started doing some others. My wife as a realtor, working with a lot of out-of-state investors. They ask, well, what property management is around there? So of course she's not going to force me on them, but she'll say, well, my husband does it, and there's also these few ones you can look into. In most cases, they'll choose me because it just seems more convenient. In most cases, they may have already known me as well anyway through Bigger Pockets or other places, so they kind of at least
Yeah.
know who I am, trust me enough to see I can at least do a good enough, if not better, job than what they're doing. Because I try to keep it somewhat small. We're not like a big business with hundreds or thousands of doors, so it's still relatively small, and which makes it, I guess, maybe better in a way. Maybe I don't know, but so yeah, I've been doing that for a few years now. Just I don't mind it. I enjoy it. In fact, yeah, my process for placing tenants, I think, is pretty good as far as like what I've even looked, years ago when I was the first property I bought, I still self managed, even though it's like 45 minutes away.
Okay.
I talked to another property management company that manages buildings right next to mine, basically in the same area, just to see, if they would want to take it over. And when, of course, they want to take it over, but I asked them what they would charge for rents, and the rents they would charge were like, I think, $200 less per door than what I was getting already on my own. So I'm like, it's
Mm.
like I asked them. I've asked them directly, well, would you rent it for this price? They said no. We would do the first price. I'm like, why? Why? They're like, well, because we like to get them rented quickly. I'm like, I still get them rented quickly even at my price. So what's the difference? Why would I pay you to get me less income? So I was like, forget that. I'll just keep managing
Yeah.
myself, I guess. And and so I realized there was also a need for better management, and so I figured, why not? I can do this. At least at that time, I had the idea to grow it somewhat bigger to medium size. But as I got involved with other things, I maybe don't want to quite grow that much more than what's at now, anyways, because it does involve time and resources that I'm not sure I want to give up more of my time yet with everything else that I've got going on. So, but for now, I do enjoy doing it. And, I like working with finding and placing great tenants that stay for a long time and are good to work with. I don't take on these, we'll say, slum properties or anything like that are not up to my standards. If it's not something that I would personally buy, then I'm not going to manage it. So I don't want to deal with bad properties or bad tenants or even bad landlords, I guess. So
Mhm.
yeah.
That's cool, man. Yeah, that's a good story. I like that you're taking care of people, and it's funny that you try to outsource and they came in at lower rents. That's crazy.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised too. I'm like, was like, well, if I'm renting mine for this much, you probably could rent yours for that much too, make your your other clients happier. But they're like, nope, we want to rent them fast. So basically, that tells me, okay, they're not actually doing much to actually vet these tenants and just putting whoever comes with money sooner. And so, but I was like, I even told them, I was like, well, I still place my ads online or whatever, and I still get dozens of applications even at the higher price. So I don't see why you have any problem renting for more. But whatever. I'm I'm fine with doing it myself. It's not doesn't really take whole much work. If you place great tenants there, it's not that much of a hassle really. So
Right. Yeah, and it was nice that you vetted the property management group before you signed on the dotted line. So,
yeah.
so man, you mentioned bigger pockets. Obviously, I want to add value through this podcast, but I realize there's so many other resources available as well to listeners. Bigger Pockets is a great community. It's got a lot of very smart people on there, and a lot of good questions. So you said you're involved with that. What all do you do for them?
I won't do anything for them, but no, I'm just that was my first, I guess, platform that for me for social media. I was prior to 2021, I was inactive or non-existent on any social media or anywhere really, other than Bigger Pockets. That was pretty much my learning educational platform was Bigger Pockets. I pretty much everything I learned and gained was from listening to the podcasts and webinars, reading the books that they put out, and the ones that people recommend. So I started being active on there, making comments, answering questions, and I kind of quickly became sort of, I guess, a local celebrity on Bigger Pockets from just my being active on there.
Cool.
As it's funny, one time we took our son to like one of those indoor jumping trampoline places, and the I guess the manager there or something said my name sounded familiar. I'm like, I don't know who you are. He's like, are you in Bigger Pockets? I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah, there you
Oh,
go. Yeah,
wow.
I was like, yeah, cool. But yeah, so I was very active on there, and so anybody that would search for anything about Idaho Falls, my name would always come up in the list because I was very active on there talking about the area, Idaho Falls, Pocatello, and stuff. Um, so that was kind of my I guess starting point to really learn and become somewhat of a local area expert on there. So that's definitely for me when I talk to people that are just starting out and want to know where can I learn more or where can I find a mentor or whatever. I tell them go to Bigger Pockets first. You'll learn a ton there. You can probably learn just as much as you could by paying for some other mentorship program. So at least do that to begin with, and then see if you want something more beyond that. So that's kind of for me how I took it. I treated Bigger Pockets essentially was my mentor. Not just the company itself, but obviously everybody that was talking on all the podcasts, all the episodes that come on, I learned from them. So essentially, I'm getting this mentorship just by listening to these podcasts every day. I was listening while I was working from home. I've just listened to podcasts all day long, and
Wow.
got
Soak it up.
yeah, exactly. I took it all in, and that's what gave me the motivation to buy that first property to begin with. Had I not been listening to that every day, I probably would not have been searching and actively trying to find properties to the point I was. And I learned about, that's kind of where I learned to use the techniques I used to buy that first property. Was a local lender that does 10% down, and I could borrow from my 401k. All these things that I
Hmm.
used to buy that first property. So yeah, I still not to say anything bad about anybody else's podcast, but I still have the hopes to one day be on the Bigger Pockets podcast. I want to get there one day. But it's been great. I took the opportunities pretty much on any podcast from Bigger Pockets and others as well now. If I hear somebody like someone listen to this podcast today, I always I took the extra effort at the end to actually reach out to the person if I liked what they were saying or wanted to
Yeah.
learn more. I would
Right.
contact them and say, hey, I heard you on this podcast. I'd love to learn more. And in most cases, the people were always gracious and would respond. And that's ultimately what led me now to be where I'm at today, pretty much because one person I specifically reached out to, who just happened to be on the Bigger Pockets podcast. Somebody else had mentioned to me about a year before that, say you should talk to this
Okay.
person. But
Awesome.
I was too much of an introvert and didn't really feel comfortable reaching out to a stranger. So so I didn't. But then when I heard her on this podcast, I'm like, hey, so this person told me to contact you a year ago, and I didn't. So now I am, and she's who kind of got me now involved with other meetup groups and on LinkedIn and things. So I attribute a lot of that because just from listening to those podcasts that got me that and taking that extra action to reach out to somebody led me to get involved with other people and groups and things I'm doing today that I would not have done otherwise. So definitely, anybody listening, if you listen to this podcast or any other podcast, or you hear somebody that something resonates with you, don't be afraid to reach out and contact that person. You could definitely change your life.
Yeah, honestly, like that is some wise advice, and I've experienced some success as well. I try to message people. I try to give them, just a heartfelt message. Appreciation, showing appreciation. Maybe something that we have in common. And try to get that conversation going. And not everybody responds, but I don't think most people are taking steps like that. So that sets you apart, and it opens doors that wouldn't open any other way.
For sure.
So let's talk about RV resort investing. What all
Yeah,
y'all
let's
got
do
going on?
it. So I've been involved with Happy Camper Capital for just about a year. It was around November of 2021 when I officially joined with the company. It was the two founding partners had just been had just bought their first property during that year, and so they were looking to grow and expand. And like I said, I was actively looking for something beyond what I was seeing elsewhere. I was actively searching for multifamily or partners to form a team to syndicate multifamily, but I was not finding any deals that stood out to me that looked like a great deal. I was underwriting or analyzing dozens of properties, but nothing that made me feel comfortable enough to say this is a great deal. I was like, yeah, it maybe barely works out, but if one thing goes wrong, then it won't. So I didn't feel comfortable asking to put people's money into it, and
Right.
I was not having an easy time finding partners that seemed to jive well, with everything, so I was honestly looking at other just general syndication deals that I could invest in as an LP investor, but nothing really got me excited from the numbers I was seeing. And so I was just patiently waiting and looking for something better. And then, talking about podcasts, I heard on a podcast somebody else talk about campgrounds, and it kind of stood out to me as something interesting. Being where I'm at, close to Yellowstone, it's camping here is a big thing. Pretty much all my neighbors have RVs and go camping all the time. So I was like, there's an opportunity here possibly. So I wanted to look more into it, and I started going to other webinars and meetup events of people talking about that, just to network and get to know people in this space, and learn more about it really. But ideally, initially, I had no intention to really get super involved, other than I was putting myself out there as a boots on the ground. If somebody wanted to buy in this area, I could go check it out. My wife's a realtor; we'd help with the purchase, all that, and so that was my initial intention of even going to these things. Was I could be get my foot in the door, connect with somebody else that knows what they're doing, and at least get a small piece of something here. And just doing that again, just putting myself out there is what ultimately connected me with my partners now at the camper, and we got in a call, talked about my goals and their goals and everything they were looking to do and where I was looking to go, and the kind of returns I was looking for, which what they were getting was far exceeding what I was looking for, and far exceeding what I was seeing anything else out there. So I'm like, well, definitely I'm going to be investing with these guys, even if nothing else happens. But I said, luckily for me, I'm grateful, and that they actually invited me to join up with them to kind of help their team grow, and because they saw the potential in me that even I probably didn't see, I guess, as far as again, I was a super introvert, and I was trying to push myself and do things to be more active and social, but I was like, I don't know, I was just but the way I looked at it after I thought about it for a bit, I was like, 5 years from now, what's my life going to look like? If I don't take this chance, and if I do take this chance, it's like, cause I figured, what have I got to lose, right? So I didn't want to look back. I didn't want to look back and regret not at least trying. I was like, if it doesn't work out, no big deal. At least I tried, and I could go back to multifamily. But if this works out great, this could be a life changing moment. So I decided to give it a try and follow my gut and instinct, I guess, my feelings. I tell people, pretty much anything really, but especially big decisions. As you mentioned, I'm a very religious person as well, and so I pray about everything and seek guidance on everything to make the right decisions. And I felt a strong feeling that I need to give us a try. And so yeah, I was like, again, looking back, it's like, what do I got to lose? And if it doesn't work out, then really nothing changes, no big deal. But if it does work out, this could be the thing I've been looking for and waiting for, and the door that opens up that can put me in a position to really do a lot more to help people later on down the road. So anyway, so I decided to go for it, and luckily for me, so far things have been working out great. We've had an excellent year since I've been involved, and with this next year coming up, it's going to be even better. But yeah, we buy RV resorts and campgrounds and marinas across the country. Just to give some clarification, these are not what most people call RV parks, which are more similar to like a mobile home park. These are vacation resorts, destination campgrounds. So you go there, hang out, have fun, and then you go home. So we don't have to worry about people, evicting and all that kind of stuff. People just come to have a great time and spend some money on some other activities and things there, and then they go home. So these properties produce a lot of income. So our we'll say average deal that we are targeting when we look for a property, we look for at least say a 12 to 15% average cash on cash. With probably about a 2.5, 3x multiple on a 5-year hold. So and you compare that to just about anything else out there right now, those are much better numbers than you're seeing on anything, especially with that cash flow being the big component. A lot of other deals maybe do a 2 or 2.3x multiple I usually see, but the cash flow is like slim to none. You get that bulk of that at the end when it sells or refinances. So these deals, you're getting cash flow right from the start. So if somebody is looking to reach that financial independence or just have that supplemental income to help with their needs or whatever, we can help people get there and get that financial independence a lot faster with a lot less money out of pocket and less deals by investing with us. And so we do both 506B and 506C opportunities for everybody. So different people, whatever your circumstances are, you can get involved with us for sure at some point, one way or the other. And we throw in an extra benefit that we want our investors to actually go see these properties, go there and have fun with them. So we actually give our investors up to a week free stay per year at the property of their choice, and plus a discount beyond that throughout the year. So so there's no excuse to not go there and check it out and have fun. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and that's I tell people that's something you're not going to see in anything else. You're not going to, if you invest in a multifamily, you're probably not going to go live there or hang out in the parking lot with your friends. So this is something you can actually go and actually have this experience as an investor, to really have a connection and enjoy your investment.
For sure. Yeah, that's awesome. So I guess before we dive into a loss and a win, what kind of stretch profits are you guys utilizing? You've got people coming in to rent spaces, but you mentioned also you might have activities. So what type of ways are y'all stretching profits?
Yeah, so the great thing about campgrounds, there's multiple income streams. So it's not like just your rent and maybe laundry or pet rent. There's a lot more to it. So there's going to be almost every case. There's going to be some type of convenience store. So you got people just buying snacks and goodies and stuff. But then the activities, typically if there's going to be some type of water feature like a lake or river, you're going to have possibly boat rentals or like a paddleboard kayak type rentals and stuff. Potentially like a aqua park, which is essentially like a giant inflatable on water. Then you got other things, people may pay for, like internet connections. And we do a lot of the chargebacks, like for the utilities. People pulling with an RV or something, they're going to connect to the electricity and water and all that stuff. So we can actually charge those things back. But potentially, depending on the property and where it's at and what's kind of fits for the area, we may have events like concerts that come on. So people could come out for a concert event. They might not be there for camping at all. They come out there to go play in the water or come to a concert, and while they're there, spend money on other things. They may have some like ATV rentals or horseback riding. So just tons of different things people can come and do. And you don't necessarily have to have an RV to go there either. Or even if you don't have a tent. Most of these properties are going to have cabins or some type of glamping option, or in some cases we actually have a hotel on site too. So there's multiple options for people to come there and stay and just come for the activities and have a great time and still go home later.
Yeah, I love that. That's so cool. Man, so what's a loss that you've seen or experienced that you'd be willing to share today?
So I'll chop this one up to I think anyway, a potentially huge loss that I missed out on because of my I guess, limiting beliefs, many years ago. So before I was really involved with Happy Camper, before I really got involved in anything commercial, I guess, per se, even going back to those contacts I was reaching out to through podcasts. So people may be familiar with the name AJ Osborne. He's a big self-storage guy. He's actually here in Idaho, like in Boise, so about 4 hours from me. So I heard him on the Bigger Pockets podcast many years ago, and I reached out to him because I knew that what he talked about, what he buys is, he looks for, say, closed down Kmart's or something and convert them to indoor storage. So
Oh,
it just
wow.
happened that there was a Kmart here near me that had just closed down. I was like, hey, this could work out here. There's one just like you said, and he's like, he actually responded. He's like, great, let's talk about it. But then that point I froze up. I got scared. I'm like, what have I got to offer? I'm a nobody. I can't. I have nothing to offer. I just kind of felt like a fraud, and I felt like I should not be doing this because I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm so just my own limiting beliefs kept me from even responding back to him at that point. I'd never gotten a call. I never answered back, and had I done that, potentially he would have bought that property because I know he's soon after I heard him talking about another Kmart he bought, and the person that brought it to him, kind of like what I did, I think he gave him like a 5% ownership just for bringing
Finding the
him the
deal.
property. So I was like, that could have been me, and so I still to this day regret not taking action and letting those fears get the best of me, because the worst case scenario, you could have said, yeah, I don't like it or whatever, fine, but me not even at least taking that chance to take the extra step and get on a phone call, that potentially could have cost me a lot, really. So I think that's when, to this day, my biggest loss, I'd say. I lost on other things, I'd say, but just because of that, in other cases, it was different reasons. This one is mainly because of my own fears, my own limiting doubts or limiting beliefs that kept me from taking that next step. I've tried to learn from that to never let that happen again. To say, no matter what, even if I have no chance of this deal happening, whatever, I'm still gonna at least give it a try and move forward.
And yeah, no, that's powerful. That's very powerful. And it's very clear, when we got to listen to your introduction, and just getting to hear you talk, you had limiting beliefs, you had fears, you had obstacles, maybe self-imposed, but you overcame those. You took little steps every day. You reached out to people, you asked questions, you did your own research, and now it's obvious that you've seen great momentum. And so the last thing I want to do today is just be able to shine the spotlight on you. You can talk about one win, you can talk about several wins. Just what are some of the things that you've accomplished so far in real estate that you're just really excited about?
Wow. Honestly, I think what gets me the most excited is well, I guess a couple things. First of all, because 5 years ago when I bought that first property, essentially 5.5 years right at this point. So June 2017, I bought that first fourplex. On that moment, that day, first of all, two things happened. I got over my fears because I was also afraid to buy that property. Even the day before closing, I was about ready to back out because it was like, what could go wrong,
Yeah.
but I got past that and realized my numbers make sense. I got to get started. So, but that day I said, 5 years from now, I want to have that option to be able to quit my job if I want to. I'll have done enough in real estate to have enough cash flow coming in that I can make that happen. So I'm happy to say that I'm at that point now where I can make that happen. So I'm grateful to say again, because 5.5 years, not quite 5 years, but it's close enough. I'm gonna say I'm calling that goal met, and so I'm excited about that. And then I'm also excited that I'm because of the experience I've had across multiple different things. So I've got some development projects going on and whatnot, but all those things have put me in position to be able to help many other people. And just from me being active on social media and talking about my experience and things that there are many others who have contacted me saying, thanking me for sharing my experience because they're either are in or were in a similar position. They can relate and understand, and especially understanding the fears and different things. So I'm grateful that my experiences have helped influence others to get past their comfort zones and push themselves to make a change and make a difference in their life. To this day, I'm grateful that I got past that fear to buy that first property. Even though I said traditionally speaking, I should have had no business buying it. We had a lot of debt, and again, I borrowed from my 401k to make it happen. So,
Yeah.
But that doing that, even though it was against all other common sense to do, was the best decision I've made in this, outside of, family and things. But that's what led me to this point today. If I had not done that, I just kind of continued working my job and doing nothing else, most likely I'd be, bankrupt today, because the path we were going down, it was just would not have made a difference. So that's the biggest one, I think, is just be able to use my experience to help motivate and inspire others.
That's awesome. Well, you've motivated and inspired me, so I know you'll do that for the listeners as well. Last question for you: how can people contact you today?
Well, obviously, as I mentioned, you can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook. Those are pretty much my two biggest social media places where I'm at. You can obviously come to happycampercapital.com, which I highly suggest in any case, just to go there and learn more, and register on our site just to see what we're doing. But on that site as well, you can go to the About Us tab and find my name, and right there you can schedule a call with me directly. We can get on a Zoom call and talk about your situation and how we can possibly help you.
Perfect. All right, Don. Well, thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thanks.
Like and subscribe below. A new episode will air every Tuesday at 7 a.m. Are you looking for more content? Visit our website, biggerpictureholdings.com. And remember, money really does grow on trees.